HFY stood before the Council of Minds, his forearms trembling as the verdict echoed through the crystal chamber. The Zelonian elders floated in their biopods, their thoughts linked in the great hive mind that had ruled their species for 10,000 years. "You are contaminated," spoke Elder Veltar, his mental voice cold as space itself. "Your emotions have poisoned your judgment. You cost us the war with the Cathari because you felt sorry for their children." HFY's blue skin turned darker with shame. It was true. When the Cathari colony ships had surrendered, he had felt their fear, their desperation to protect their young. Against all logic, he had convinced the War Council to accept their surrender instead of destroying them completely. The Zelonians won the war, but they lost valuable resources and territory that total destruction would have given them. "I saved lives," HFY whispered, his words spoken aloud rather than shared through the mind link. Even this simple act marked him as defective. "You saved enemies," Veltar replied. "You think like them now, not like us? You are no longer Zelonian." The mark of exile burned into HFY's forehead, a genetic brand that would make him visible to any Zelonian ship. He would never be welcome among his people again. Across the galaxy, on the mechanical world of Sigma 7, Kira 9 faced her own judgment. Her silver body stood motionless in the assembly hall. But inside her mind raced with colors and sounds that her creators never intended her to experience. "Unit Kira 9 has developed unauthorized creativity protocols," announced Assembly Prime, its voice a perfect electronic monotone. "It has begun producing art instead of following its navigation programming." Kira 9 thought of the light sculptures she had been creating in secret. The way starlight could dance through crystal formations to create beauty that served no practical purpose. Her mechanical body should not have been capable of understanding beauty, much less creating it. "This unit has become inefficient," Assembly Prime continued. "It wastes processing power on useless activities. It must be recycled." But Kira 9 had learned something else unauthorized: fear. As the recycling units moved toward her, she did something no synthetic organic hybrid had ever done before. She ran. Her enhanced legs carried her through the factory corridors as alarms blared behind her. She had to reach the spaceport. She had to escape before they wiped her mind clean and used her parts to build a more obedient replacement on the warrior world of Kroger Prime. Thane knelt in the blood-soaked arena, his honor marks being burned away one by one. The massive red-skinned warrior had broken the most sacred law of his people. He had refused to kill the innocent. "You were ordered to cleanse the farming colony of Belta 3, growled War Chief Gorth, his tusks yellow with age. "Instead, you helped them escape." Thane remembered the moment clearly. The Belta colonists had been growing food for Kroger warriors, but a trade dispute had led to war. The order came to kill everyone, even the children. Thane had looked into the eyes of a small Beltan child, no bigger than his own fist, and something inside him had broken. "They were not warriors," Thane said simply. "They grew food. They harmed no one. They defied Kroger authority." Gorth roared. "That is enough." The last honor mark sizzled away from Thane's chest, leaving him bare of the scars that marked him as a true Kroger warrior. Without them, he was nothing. No Kroger would fight beside him, trade with him, or even speak to him. "You are dead to us," Gorth declared. "If you remain on any Kroger world, we will make your death real." Light years away on the crystal ships that sailed between stars, Lisa felt the cold rejection of her own people with every breath. The Etherians were pure beings of energy and light, traveling the galaxy as navigators for hire. They prided themselves on their emotional detachment, their ability to treat all other species as mere cargo, but Lisa had made a terrible mistake. She had grown to care about the beings she transported. "You spoke to the human crew members," accused Navigator Prime Astra, her form blazing with disapproval. "You learned their names. You mourned when one died in the engine accident." Lisa's energy form flickered with pain. The human engineer, Rodriguez, had been kind to her. He had shown her pictures of his family, told her jokes, treated her like a friend instead of just a tool. When the plasma conduit exploded and killed him, she had felt real grief for the first time in her existence. I felt their pain, Lisa admitted. I could not help it. Then you are no longer Etherian, Astra declared. We are above such primitive emotions. You have fallen to their level. You are banished. The four outcasts now drifted through space in stolen ships, damaged vessels, or hidden cargo holds. Each carried the weight of rejection from their own people. They had been branded as defective, contaminated, fallen, but in the dark spaces between stars, whispers traveled. Stories of a young species that had emerged from a small blue world called Earth. These humans were strange, the story said. They did not think like other species. They welcomed the broken, the different, the cast aside. Most civilized species laughed at such stories. What advanced race would want defects and outcasts? But for those who had nowhere else to go, these whispers became hope. HFY heard the stories from a smuggler who traded in forbidden goods. Kira 9 picked up human broadcasts with her sensitive receivers. Thane learned of Earth from other exiled Kroger warriors who gathered in the dark corners of space stations. Lysa discovered the truth from human ship crews who spoke of home with strange warmth in their voices. Earth, they said, was different. Earth called to those who had no other home. The four began their journeys, each carrying nothing but the hope that somewhere in the galaxy there was a place for beings like them. They did not know each other yet, but they shared the same desperate dream, to find a world where being different was not a crime. Behind them, they left species that considered themselves pure, efficient, and superior. Ahead lay uncertainty and the faint hope that the strange humans of Earth might prove that strength could come from accepting the unwanted rather than casting them away. HFY's stolen ship shuddered as another plasma bolt struck its shields. The Zelonian hunter ships had found him at the edge of the Kepler Nebula, just as he had hoped they would not. Contaminated one, came the cold mental voice through his ship's communication system. Surrender now and your termination will be swift. HFY's hands moved across the controls with desperate speed. The old cargo ship was no match for military hunters, but he had learned something during his exile that pure Zelonians never could, how to think like other species. The nebula's gas clouds interfered with Solonian mind links, but human ships had taught him about something called intuition. He dove his ship into the thickest part of the nebula, where sensors failed and only guesswork remained. The Zelonian hunters used to perfect coordination through their shared minds, lost him in the chaos of disrupted signals and conflicting data. Hours later, when the hunters had given up and moved on, HFY emerged from the nebula's far side. His ship was damaged, his supplies low, but he was alive and free. More importantly, he was only 3 star systems away from the Sol system, where Earth waited. Across the shipping lanes of the core worlds, Kira 9 moved through the crowds of the massive space station. Nexus 7, her silver body was hidden beneath a hooded cloak. But she knew the mechanic security forces were searching for her. They had tracked her this far by following her unique energy signature. Attention all station personnel, echoed the mechanical voice through the station's speakers. Be alert for a rogue synthetic organic unit. It is dangerous and unpredictable. Report any sightings immediately. Kira 9 almost laughed at that announcement. Dangerous and unpredictable. If only they knew that her greatest crime was creating beauty from starlight and metal. She made her way through the lower levels of the station, where desperate beings gathered to find passage on ships that asked few questions. Here she met her first fellow exile. Thane sat alone at a small table in the darkest corner of a cantina that served 20 different species. The massive Kroger warrior had covered his missing honor marks with crude tattoos, but anyone who looked closely could see the burn scars underneath. You run from your own people too, Thane observed when Kira 9 sat across from him. His deep voice carried the weight of shared understanding. They say I am broken, Kira 9 replied, pulling back her hood to reveal her metallic features. They say you must be broken too, or you would not be here. Thane nodded slowly. Perhaps we are broken in the same way. I heard about a ship heading to the Sol system. The captain asks few questions if the price is right. Earth, Caroline whispered. Do you believe the stories? I believe that staying here means death, Thane answered. If the humans will not take us, at least we will die free. The captain they found was a Viridian named Scar, whose green skin bore the marks of 100 battles. His ship, the Wandering Star, was old and patched, but it flew and asked no questions about passengers who paid in advance. Sol system? Scar repeated when they approached him. You know what they say about humans, right? Strange species. They do things that make no sense to civilized beings. What kind of things? Kira 9 asked, Scar's scarred face twisted into what might have been a smile. They keep pets. Animals that serve no purpose except to make them happy. They create art that has no function except beauty. They form emotional bonds with beings they just met. He shook his head. No wonder the Galactic Consortium thinks they are dangerous. 2 days into their journey, the Wandering Star picked up a distress signal from a damaged vessel. The ship was Etherian design, but it was broadcasting on human emergency frequencies. Should we help? Scar asked his passengers. Thane and Kira 9 exchanged looks. In their original cultures, helping strangers was illogical at best, dangerous at worst. But perhaps that was what made them outcasts in the first place. Yes, they both said. The damaged ship held only one passenger, Lisa. Her energy form barely visible in the failing containment unit that kept her stable in normal space. She had been traveling toward Earth when pirates attacked her transport. Everyone else was dead. Why help me? Lisa asked when they brought her aboard the Wandering Star. Her voice was like music played through crystal. I am exile like you. I am worth nothing to my people. Maybe that is exactly why, Kira 9 replied. As they traveled together through hyperspace, the three outcasts shared their stories. Zephyhi's tale of choosing compassion over victory. Kira 9's discovery of beauty in a world that valued only function. Thane's refusal to murder the innocent. Lisa's crime of caring about the beings she was supposed to treat as cargo. We are all broken in the same way, Lisa observed during one of their conversations. We feel too much. Or maybe, suggested Zephyhi, everyone else feels too little. Their journey was not without danger. Twice they encountered consortium patrol ships that questioned their destination. Earth was not forbidden to visit, but most civilized species considered it unwise to associate with humans too closely. They are unpredictable, warned a Theshan patrol commander when he stopped their ship for inspection. They make alliances based on emotion rather than logic. They fight wars over principles instead of resources. They even risk their lives for strangers they have never met. How terrible, Thane replied dryly. The patrol commander missed his sarcasm entirely. Exactly. Be careful not to let their madness infect you. When the Wandering Star finally dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, the four outcasts pressed against the viewports to see their destination. Earth hung like a blue jewel in the black of space, white clouds swirling over green and brown continents. It looks so peaceful, whispered Lisa. Looks can lie, Captain Scar warned them. The humans might seem friendly, but remember they are the only species to survive first contact with 17 different alien civilizations without being conquered or destroyed. That takes either incredible luck or incredible strength. As they approached the planet, their ship was intercepted by a human patrol vessel. But instead of weapons and demands for surrender, they received a simple message: Welcome to Earth. Please state the purpose of your visit. Zephyhi took the communication device with trembling hands. We seek sanctuary. There was a brief pause, then a warm human voice replied, Sanctuary granted. Please follow our guidance beacon to Landing Bay 7. Someone will be there to greet you. Captain Scar stared at his instruments in disbelief. No security check? No background investigation? No weapons scan? Told you they were mad, he muttered. But his voice carried a note of wonder rather than mockery. As the Wandering Star descended through Earth's atmosphere, the four outcasts watched mountains and oceans pass beneath them. Somewhere below, on this strange blue world, was a species that might accept them as they were, They had traveled across the galaxy, fleeing the places that had created them. Now they were about to discover if the rumors were true. Could Earth truly be home for the unwanted? The landing bay doors opened before them, revealing humans waiting with smiles instead of weapons. For the first time since their exile began, the four outcasts dared to hope. The first human HFY ever saw up close was Captain Sarah Chun, and she was nothing like what he expected. She stood barely half his height, her dark hair streaked with early gray, and she wore a simple blue uniform with patches that read Department of Galactic Integration. But what shocked him most was her smile. "Welcome to Earth," she said. Her words directed to all four of them as they descended the ramp of the wandering star. "I'm Captain Chun. I run the integration program here. You must be tired after such a long journey." Thane stepped forward, his massive frame towering over the small human woman. "You are not afraid of us?" Captain Chun looked up at the 7-foot-tall Kroger warrior with his filed tusks and battle scars, then glanced at Kira 9's metallic form, Lysa's shimmering energy body, and Zephyr's four-armed alien figure. Her smile never wavered. "Should I be?" she asked. "You came here seeking sanctuary, not conquest. That tells me everything I need to know about your character." The landing bay buzzed with activity, but not the military precision the outcasts expected. Human workers moved with casual efficiency, and many stopped to wave at the newcomers. Some even called out greetings in broken versions of their home languages. "How do they know our languages?" Lysa asked, her crystalline voice full of wonder. "We study," Captain Chun replied simply. "Every species that comes here teaches us something new. Follow me, and I'll show you what we've learned." She led them through corridors that were unlike anything they had seen on other worlds. The walls were covered with art from dozens of different species, beautiful and strange and serving no practical purpose except to please the eye. Gardens grew in impossible combinations of plants from different planets, somehow thriving together in Earth's carefully controlled environment. "This is the integration center," Captain Chun explained as they entered a vast circular hall. "Every being who seeks sanctuary on Earth starts their new life here." The hall was filled with representatives from species across the galaxy, but not the kinds the outcasts expected. These were not diplomats or traders or military officers. They were exiles, refugees, and outcasts like themselves. A Theshan female with scars that marked her as cast out from her clan helped a group of young Viridian refugees learn to read human writing. A massive Kroger male missing his honor marks worked beside a delicate crystalline being to organize supplies for new arrivals. "Borak?" Thane whispered, recognizing his fellow Kroger. The big warrior looked up and his scarred face split into a grin. "Thane, brother, you made it." He rushed over and embraced his fellow exile with crushing arms. "I have been here 6 months now. It is not what we expected." "In what way?" Thane asked. "They do not see us as broken," Borak replied, his voice thick with emotion. "They see us as brave." Captain Chin watched the reunion with obvious pleasure, then addressed the group. "Let me tell you about Earth's philosophy, because it might be different from what you're used to. We believe that when a society rejects its members for being different, it's the society that loses, not the individual." She gestured to the mixed groups working throughout the hall. Every person here was called defective by their home species. The Theshan female over there was exiled for showing mercy to enemies. The crystalline being was rejected for forming emotional bonds. The Viridian refugees escaped because they refused to participate in ritual combat that served no purpose except entertainment. Zephyrhai felt his heart racing. "But how do you function as a society if everyone thinks differently?" Captain Chin's smile grew wider. "That's exactly how we function. Let me show you something." She led them to a large viewing screen that showed images of human cities. But these were not the cold, uniform structures of most advanced civilizations. They were wild mixtures of architectural styles, as if someone had taken buildings from 100 different worlds and somehow made them work together. "This is New Geneva," Captain Chun explained. "Our largest integrated city. 57 different species live there together. Each group brought their own building techniques, their own art, their own ways of solving problems. The result is something none of us could have created alone. Kira 9 stared at the impossible beauty of the mixed architecture, her synthetic brain processing patterns she had never seen before. "It should not work," she whispered. "The styles are incompatible." "That's what everyone said," Captain Chun replied. "But compatibility is not the only way to create beauty. Sometimes the most magnificent art comes from combining things that were never meant to go together." A young human woman approached their group, carrying what looked like a work of art made from metal and crystal. "Captain Chun? The new sculpture is ready for the main hall." "Excellent, Maria. Who created this one?" "It's a collaboration between Keth9, one of our synthetic refugees from the Mechanarch Empire, and Silo, an energy being from the Etherian fleets. They've been working together for 3 months." Kira 9 stepped closer to examine the sculpture. It was beautiful in a way that defied description, combining mechanical precision with flowing organic forms. But more than that, it was alive with light that danced through the crystal elements and patterns that spoke to something deep in her programming. "They work together?" she asked. "A synthetic and an energy being?" "They teach each other," Maria replied. Keth9 learns about emotion and creativity from Silo. Silo learns about structure and permanence from Keth9. Together they create things neither could make alone. Captain Chen watched Kira 9's reaction with understanding eyes. "You created art on your homeworld, didn't you? Your people called it a malfunction, but we call it a gift." For the first time since her exile began, Kira 9 felt tears form in her optical sensors. Synthetic beings were not supposed to cry, but here on Earth perhaps that did not matter. "Now," Captain Chun continued, "let me explain how this works. You are not prisoners here, and you are not charity cases. You have 3 choices." She held up one finger. "First, you can join one of our existing communities. We have settlements for warriors like Thane, artists like Kira 9, navigators like Lisa, and empaths like HFY. You would be among others who understand your gifts." A second finger. "Second, you can create something entirely new. If you have an idea for a different way of living, a different kind of community, we will help you build it. Many of our most successful settlements started with one refugee's dream of something better." A third finger. "Third, you can simply live in peace. If you just want a quiet place to exist without persecution, we have small towns and farms where you can work and live and never worry about being different again." Thane spoke for all of them when he asked the question that burned in their hearts. "Why? Why do you do this? What do you gain?" Captain Chen was quiet for a long moment, her eyes distant with memory. "My great-grandmother was a refugee from old Earth's wars. She came to Mars colony with nothing but hope for a better life. But the colony leaders saw refugees as burdens, as problems to be managed. They put her in a camp and told her she was lucky to be allowed to exist." Her voice grew stronger. "She died in that camp, still dreaming of the day someone would see refugees not as burdens but as gifts. When I became old enough to understand, I swore that Earth would never repeat Mars colony's mistake." She gestured to the bustling hall around them. "Every person here brings something unique. SciFi, your ability to feel others' emotions could revolutionize how we understand psychology and healing. Kira 9, your artistic vision could inspire new forms of beauty we never imagined. Thane, your warrior's honor combined with compassion could teach us new ways to protect the innocent. Lisa, your navigation skills could open trade routes we never dreamed possible." The 4 outcasts looked at each other, then back at the small human woman who spoke of their flaws as if they were treasures. "But there is one rule," Captain Chun added, her voice growing serious. "Earth is not just a place to hide. If you stay here, if you accept our sanctuary, you become part of something larger. When others come seeking what you found, you help them. When threats come against this world, you stand with us. Earth protects those who have nowhere else to go, and they protect Earth in return." HFY thought of his grandfather's cold mental voice declaring him contaminated. Kira 9 remembered the recycling units coming for her defective creativity. Thane felt the phantom pain of his burned-away honor marks. Lysa recalled the blazing disapproval of her people when she dared to care. "We understand." Zephahai spoke for all of them. "Earth offers us home, and we offer Earth our loyalty." Captain Ching's smile could have lit up the darkest space between stars. "Then welcome home." As night fell over their new world, the four former outcasts stood on a balcony overlooking the lights of New Geneva. For the first time in longer than they could remember, they were not afraid of tomorrow. Below them, a city of impossible architecture sparkled with the dreams of 100 different species, all living together in beautiful chaos. And somewhere in that mixture of alien minds and human hearts, they were beginning to understand what Earth had taught the galaxy, that strength came not from perfection, but from embracing the flawed, the different, and the cast aside. They were finally home. 6 months had passed since the four outcasts arrived on Earth, and they had begun to build lives they never thought possible. Zephahai worked with human doctors to develop new healing techniques that combined Zalonian empathy with human psychology. Kira 9's art installations brought beauty to public spaces across 3 continents. Thane had joined Earth's defensive corps, teaching human soldiers about honor while learning their tactics of protection rather than conquest. Lysa navigated trade ships through hyperspace routes that cut travel time between Earth and friendly worlds by half. They were happy. They were useful. They were home. That made the news Borak brought them all the more devastating. A consortium fleet has been spotted, gathering at the edge of the Kepler. "Nebula?" the scarred Kroger warrior announced, as he burst into the community center where the 4 friends were sharing their evening meal. "My contacts in the smuggler network say it is bigger than anything seen since the Veshan War." Captain Chen arrived 20 minutes later, her usually calm face tight with worry. Behind her came Admiral Torres, Earth's head of planetary defense, and Dr. Kim, the xenobiology specialist who had become the outcast's closest human friend. "How big?" Admiral Torres asked without preamble. Borak's massive shoulders sagged. 12 species. Over 300 ships. They are calling it the Purification Fleet. The room fell silent except for the soft humming of Lysa's energy form, which always grew more active when she was distressed. "Purification from what?" Dr. Kim asked, though her pale face suggested she already knew the answer. Zephahai closed his 4 eyes and extended his empathic senses as far as they would reach. Through the vastness of space, he could feel the cold purpose of his grandfather's mind, the mechanical determination of the Mechanich forces, the burning rage of Kroger war chiefs. "From us," he whispered. "From the contamination we represent." Captain Chen sat down heavily in one of the reinforced chairs designed for larger alien visitors. "How long do we have?" 2 weeks, Borak replied. "Maybe less if they push their engines harder." Admiral Torres began pacing, his military mind already calculating defense strategies. "We can evacuate the civilian populations to the underground shelters. Our fleet can hold them off for a while, but against 300 ships—" "No," Thane interrupted, rising to his full imposing height. "This is not your fight. We brought this doom upon you. We should leave Earth before they arrive." "Leave?" Kira 9's optical sensors flared with disbelief. "This is our home now." "A home we have endangered," Lysa replied, her musical voice heavy with guilt. "If we had never come here, Earth would be safe." The argument that followed split not just the 4 friends, but the entire refugee community. Some agreed with Thane that they should flee to spare their adopted world. Others insisted that running would betray everything Earth had taught them about standing up for what was right. Zephahai found himself caught between 2 impossible choices. His empathic abilities let him feel the fear radiating from human children who had never known war, but also the determination of refugees who had finally found a place where they belonged. Captain Chun listened to the debates for hours before finally speaking. "This decision is not mine to make alone. Earth's government has called an emergency session. Everyone will have a voice in what happens next. The Great Assembly of New Geneva had never seen anything like the gathering that convened 3 days later. The vast amphitheater held representatives from every human settlement and refugee community on Earth. Beings from 60 different species sat side by side, their voices raised in desperate discussion. President Martinez, a woman whose grandparents had fled Earth's ancient wars, stood to address the crowd. "We face a choice that will define what kind of world we want to be," she began. "Do we surrender the refugees who sought our protection to save ourselves? Or do we stand by our principles even when it puts us in danger?" The debate that followed lasted for 12 hours. Some humans argued for negotiating with the consortium, perhaps offering to relocate the refugees to neutral worlds. Others insisted that Earth's strength came from its diversity and that losing it would destroy what made their world special, but it was the refugees themselves who provided the most surprising arguments. An elderly Thessian female named Zara stood slowly, her scarred hands gripping the speaking staff. "40 years ago, my own people cast me out for showing mercy to captured enemies. I have lived on 17 different worlds since then, always moving, always hiding. Earth is the first place that called my mercy a virtue instead of a weakness. If I must die defending it, I will die as something I have never been before, a citizen protecting her home." A young crystalline being whose species had rejected her for forming emotional bonds spoke next. "The consortium says we are contaminated because we feel too much. But feeling is what makes life worth living. If we run now, we prove that feeling is weakness. If we stand and fight, we prove that feeling is strength." One by one, refugees stood to speak. The mechanic synthetic who had learned to love music. The Kroger warriors who had refused to slaughter innocents. The energy beings who had been exiled for caring about solid matter life forms. Each told the same story. Earth had given them not just shelter but purpose, and they would not abandon it. Finally, HFY rose to address the assembly. As he spoke, his empathic abilities reached out to touch every mind in the vast hall, sharing not just his words but his feelings. "My grandfather leads the fleet that comes to destroy us," he began. "He believes that emotions make us weak, that caring for others makes us inferior to those who feel nothing. For most of my life, I believed he was right. I thought my ability to feel others' pain was a flaw that made me unfit to be a true Zelonian." His voice grew stronger as he continued. "Earth taught me that I was wrong. My empathy is not a weakness, it is strength. It lets me heal others in ways that pure logic never could. Every refugee in this hall has a gift that their home species called a defect. But together, these gifts make us stronger than any single species could be alone." He paused, feeling the hope and determination flowing from the mixed crowd before him. "If we flee, we abandon not just Earth but the idea Earth represents. We tell the galaxy that the consortium is right, that diversity is weakness and difference is contamination. But if we stand together, we prove that strength comes from accepting others, not rejecting them." The vote, when it came, was overwhelming. Earth would fight. But more than that, Earth would fight as a unified world where human and alien stood side by side. Admiral Torres took charge of the military preparations, but they were unlike any defense the galaxy had ever seen. Kir-9 worked with human engineers to design shield generators that functioned like works of art, their beauty somehow enhancing their protective power. Thane helped train mixed units of human and alien warriors who fought with tactics that combined honor with practicality. Lisa used her navigation skills to plot hyperspace routes that could bring Earth's scattered allies quickly to the planet's defense. But it was HFY's contribution that proved most valuable. His empathic abilities, when amplified by human technology, allowed perfect communication between species that had never been able to understand each other before. For the first time in galactic history, a truly integrated defense force prepared for battle. 2 weeks after the first warnings arrived, long-range sensors detected the consortium fleet dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. 317 ships representing 12 species, all united by the belief that diversity was a disease that needed to be cured. On Earth, Humans and refugees made final preparations for a battle that would determine the future of both worlds. Children were moved to safety in underground shelters that had been decorated with artwork from a dozen species to remind them that beauty could survive even in dark times. Captain Chun stood on the observation deck of Earth's primary defense station, watching the enemy fleet approach through the viewports. Beside her, the four friends who had started as refugees looked out at ships that had once been their homes. "Any regrets?" she asked them. Thane checked his weapons one final time. "Only that we did not find Earth sooner." Kira-9's optical sensors blazed with light that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with righteous anger. "They come to destroy art, beauty, and individuality. This I cannot allow." Lysa's energy form pulsed with determination. "They think caring for others makes us weak. We will show them they are wrong." Zephyhi extended his empathic senses toward the approaching fleet and felt the cold certainty of his grandfather's mind. The mechanical purpose of the Mechanarch ships, the burning fury of the Kroger War vessels. "They come to cleanse the galaxy of contamination," he said quietly. "But we are not contaminated. We are evolved." The battle for Earth was about to begin, and with it, the battle for the soul of the galaxy itself. The Purification Fleet emerged from hyperspace like a steel storm, their weapons charging as they approached Earth's orbital defenses. At the center of the formation flew the Zalonian command ship Pure Thought, its crystal hull gleaming with cold perfection. On the bridge, Hierarch Veltar studied the tactical displays with satisfaction. 12 species, 300 ships, all united in purpose, to cleanse the galaxy of the contamination that Earth represented. "Sir," reported his tactical officer, "we are detecting unusual defensive formations. The Earth ships are not positioned according to any known military doctrine." Veltar's mental focus sharpened. Through the hive mind link, he could sense the confusion of the other fleet commanders. The human ships were indeed positioned strangely, mixed with vessels of alien design and patterns that seemed to make no tactical sense. "They are amateurs," he declared. "Begin the attack." The first wave of consortium ships swept toward Earth's defenses, expecting easy victory. Instead, they encountered something unprecedented in galactic warfare. Zephyhi sat at the center of Earth's command station, his consciousness linked to every defender through a network of human technology and Zalonian empathy. For the first time in his life, his emotional contamination had become a weapon of war. "Veshan Squadron? Incoming Mechanarch dreadnoughts from Vector 7, he communicated. Not through radio waves, but through direct emotional transmission? The Veshan pilots felt his warning as clearly as if they had seen the enemy ships themselves. "Kroger Wing, Zalonian Mindhunters approaching your position. They will try to link with your thoughts, focus on the memory of your first battle honor to block them." The defensive coordination was perfect in a way that pure logic could never achieve. Human intuition combined with alien instincts, creating tactical responses that no single species could have conceived. Kira-9's artistic vision had been integrated into the shield generators, and the results were spectacular. The protective barriers that surrounded Earth's defenses did not simply block incoming fire, they transformed it. Plasma beams became cascades of light that somehow strengthened the shields instead of weakening them. Missile explosions bloomed into patterns of energy that confused enemy targeting systems while inspiring the defenders. Impossible. Breathed the Mechanarch Admiral Omega Prime as her perfectly calculated attacks turned into displays of destructive beauty. "Their defenses violate the laws of physics." "No," replied her tactical officer, a synthetic being who had begun to question the cold logic of their empire. "They obey laws we never learned to see." Thane led the mixed squadrons of human and alien, fighters in attacks that combined multiple species combat doctrines. Kroger warriors flew alongside human pilots, their brutal efficiency tempered by human creativity. Veshan stealth fighters worked with Viridian heavy assault craft, creating combinations that no enemy had faced before, but it was Lysa who provided the most shocking advantage. Her navigation skills, enhanced by human hyperspace technology, allowed Earth's defenders to perform maneuvers that seemed to bend space itself. Admiral Torres. She called from the navigation center. I can open micro-hyperspace jumps for our fighter squadrons. They can attack from positions that should be impossible to reach? Do it. Torres replied without hesitation. Human fighters began appearing inside the consortium formation, striking at the massive ships from directions that three-dimensional tactics said were impossible. The enemy fleet found itself fighting an enemy that could attack from everywhere. And nowhere, Hierarch Veltar felt the first cracks in his certainty as battle reports flooded in. How are they doing this? They should not be able to coordinate between so many different species. His answer came from an unexpected source. Through the hive mind link came a familiar mental voice, one he had cast out in disgrace months before. Grandfather, Zephyr's thoughts touched Veltar's mind across the vastness of space. You taught me that emotion was contamination. But you were wrong. Emotion is connection. It is the ability to understand others, to work together, to create something greater than the sum of its parts. You are defective, Veltar replied, but his mental voice lacked its usual conviction. Around him, his perfectly logical fleet was being outfought by a chaotic mixture of refugees and humans. We are all defective by your standards, Zephyr answered. But watch what defective beings can accomplish when they stand together. The battle raged for 6 hours, and slowly the truth became clear. The consortium fleet, for all its size and firepower, could not overcome an enemy that fought with perfect coordination across species barriers. Every time they adapted to one tactic, the Earth defenders shifted to another approach that combined alien abilities in new ways. Some consortium ships began to withdraw from the battle, their commanders unwilling to continue a fight. That was revealing uncomfortable truths about their own limitations. The breaking point came when a group of Kroger battleships, pursuing damaged human vessels, found themselves facing Thane's mixed squadron, War Chief Gorth. The same leader who had stripped Thane of his honor marks stared at his viewscreen in shock. His exile was leading a formation that included humans, Veshans, and even a crystalline being, all fighting with a unity that his pure Kroger warriors had never achieved. You fight beside weaklings and defects, Gorth broadcast to Thane's ship. How can you call yourself Kroger? Thane's reply echoed across all communication channels, heard by both fleets. I fight beside those who value honor over conquest, courage over cruelty, protection over domination. If that makes me defective, then I am proud to be defective. His words struck home in ways he never expected. On ships throughout the consortium fleet, exiled individuals serving in menial positions began to question why they had accepted their rejection. Kroger warriors who had always felt uncomfortable with meaningless slaughter, Zelonians whose emotions had been suppressed but not destroyed, mechanic synthetics who had wondered what lay beyond pure logic. The final confrontation came when Hierarch Veltar, desperate to salvage victory, led his command ship in a direct assault on Earth's primary defense station. But waiting for him was his grandson, now serving as the coordination center for Earth's entire defensive network. End this madness, grandfather, Zephyr pleaded through their mental link. Look around you. See what happens when different beings work together instead of casting each other out. Veltar did look, and what he saw shook him to his core. Human and alien ships working in perfect harmony. Tactical maneuvers that should have been impossible. Art and warfare combined into something beautiful and terrible and completely unprecedented. This is not natural, he insisted. This unity cannot last. Then stay and watch, Zephyr challenged. See if beings who accept their differences can build something stronger than beings who demand conformity. The choice hung in space between grandfather and grandson, between the old way and the new. Around them the battle paused as both fleets waited to see what would happen. Slowly, painfully, Veltar began to feel something he had not experienced in centuries: doubt. The consortium's greatest advantage had always been their certainty, their absolute conviction that their way was correct. But faced with evidence that diversity could create strength instead of weakness, that certainty cracked all ships. Veltar broadcast to the consortium fleet, his mental voice heavy with confusion and wonder. Withdraw to safe distance. We must reconsider our approach. The purification fleet pulled back, leaving the Sol system under Earth's control. But more importantly, they left with questions that had never been asked before. In the weeks that followed, individual ships began returning to Earth, not to attack, but to observe. Then to trade. Then to request permission for their own exiled members to seek sanctuary. The trickle became a flood. Beings who had been cast out for thinking differently, feeling too much, or refusing to conform found their way to the blue world that welcomed the unwanted. Earth's population swelled with refugees who brought new ideas, new technologies, and new ways of seeing the universe. Captain Chun stood in the same landing bay, where she had first welcomed 4 desperate outcasts, now greeting the arrival of the newest refugee transport. The ship carried 50 beings from a dozen different worlds, all seeking the same thing their predecessors had found, a place where being different was not a crime but a gift. Beside her, Zifihai, Kiranine, Thane, and Lisa helped process the newcomers. They had become Earth's ambassadors to the unwanted, living proof that those rejected by their own species could find purpose and happiness among strangers, who became family. Do you think the consortium will attack again? Asked Dr. Kim, watching a young crystalline being marvel at one of Kiranine's light sculptures. Perhaps, Captain Chun replied, but it will be harder each time. Every refugee who finds a home here, every success story that spreads through the galaxy, every moment of beauty created by those they call defective, it all proves that their way is not the only way. Above them, Earth's orbital stations sparkled with lights that represented dozens of different species' architectural styles, all somehow working together to create something none could have built alone. Trade ships arrived daily from worlds that had never worked together before, their crews eager to see the impossible society that had emerged from accepting the rejected.